giving people compassion, you know, is so powerful. People move through life, and how many people can you say that you know that, you know, hold space to be compassionate for people? And if there's something that's happened in your life, you will likely remember a moment where someone's been really compassionate.
Hey guys, welcome to our SoulFam Podcast, where I interview space holders from all over the world. I am your host. My name is Karolina, and I am the Connection Catalyst. I help spiritual entrepreneurs experience deeper connection with themselves, with others, and with the universe. Today on the show, we have Hannah Trousdale, the Self-Love Coach and the Reiki Healer. Welcome to the show, Hannah. How are you doing?
Hello, Karolina. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm really good today. I'm really grateful to be here with you. So thank you very much for having me.
I am super, super grateful as well, especially that we had so many technical issues, but now we are here, we are doing this, we are managing things. And you know, for me, who is doing this podcast daily or almost daily, it's such a freaking struggle sometimes to be patient and to, you know, make it all work and to accept all these technical stuff going the wrong way. But we are here and we're doing this. So that's amazing. I'm super excited. And yeah, it's just really beautiful to talk to you, because I know that you are an expert on self-love and compassion, because you've gone through your own journey of exploration and coming from the place of maybe not loving yourself so much, as the same as me actually, to really being compassionate and loving towards yourself. So I'm really excited to talk to you, especially about compassion, because I feel like it's one of the most important topics that we can talk about just nowadays and generally, because it's just really, really crucial to love yourself and to be compassionate towards yourself, because you're going to spend life with you. So yeah. It's so crucial to be there and to get there. So I just wanted to ask you, what are your practices that you use for self-compassion, to practice it in everyday life and incorporate this feeling of compassion into your life?
Yeah, so I totally agree. Yeah, compassion, self-love, it's a good thing to cultivate, and it's an amazing thing to cultivate in your life, to live a nicer life, to, you know, to have compassion for yourself and for other people. And one of the things that I give people as a tip that's really, really helped me is a little bit of, you know, an awareness of your self-talk. So one thing I think that we can all be really, you know, really guilty of is, as things happen in life and events come up, is that the first time we respond to ourselves in our minds, we can be quite, you know, hard on ourselves. It can be very much, oh, I shouldn't be feeling this way, or I should have done that, or what am I doing this for? And oh gosh, you know, Hannah, why are you being such an idiot? You know, it feels really horrible to say it now, actually, because I don't talk to myself like that anymore, or I try not to. But for people who can recognize that they are doing that to themselves in situations, I'd say to them, imagine that you are actually talking to a loved one. Imagine you're talking to a family member or a good friend, or even imagine that you're talking to a child, be it the younger version of yourself. How would you speak to them? Would you speak to them like that? Question yourself and you know, catch yourself on that. And if you do catch yourself at that moment, knowing that you're talking to yourself in a way that you wouldn't talk to somebody that, you know, you love, then be aware of that and change it, and try to cultivate that love for yourself. You know, change it and switch it around and catch yourself and go, oh no, I wouldn't say that to anybody else. So how should I be talking to myself right now? I am doing the best I can do. Maybe the situation didn't end up being the way that I thought it would be. Maybe I next time will have learned something, and I'll change the way that I react in said situation. But I'm going to hold space for myself and send myself love that I did the best that I could in that moment. And yeah, really, I feel like that's a really, really powerful practice, because you can carry it through everyday life, no matter where you are, because, you know, you are with yourself all the time, you know, and your mind will throw things up. So catching them negative thoughts and turning them can be a really powerful practice to start it towards yourself in any situation.
I love that. I love that what you shared, and I totally agree. And for me, it's been such a journey to see everyone as an inner child through the work that I'm doing as well, the trauma work, inner child work, to really have this filter on reality, whether it's my partner, whether this is my friend, if they are in negative emotions, to really see them as this beautiful, innocent inner child that is expressing these emotions, is really feeling negativity. Because the truth is that all these negative emotions come from our childhood, and now we're just playing them out. So if you do this work, like, for example, completion process, which is the method that I'm using, where you go back to the first event that you felt a specific feeling that you're feeling now, right? You're really experiencing it and embodying this inner child of yours. You can have more and more compassion towards yourself and others if you just bring this filter on it, like, okay, this person is angry, but it's actually the little kid inside of them that is angry, not the adult self that is logical, that can perceive the situation for what it is. It's actually the child that is craving for compassion, craving for validation, craving for love. So I feel like, for me at least, for myself and for others, to have more compassion, this filter on reality that everyone is just an inner child hidden in an adult body, or that everyone has the part of them that is an inner child, it really helps me to have compassion both towards me and towards other people, because then I can really visualize myself as an inner child, little kid, and I can really hold myself and really be with myself and give myself so much love and so much compassion, because this is very, very crucial. So I would love to talk about the giving compassion to other people as well, because this actually stems from giving compassion to yourself first, I feel. You cannot give compassion to someone if you don't have compassion yourself for yourself, right? So I would love you to talk a little bit about compassion for other people too, because this is also very crucial to talk about, and very important topic to touch upon.
Yeah, definitely. And giving people compassion, is so powerful. People move through life, and, how many people can you say that that hold space to be compassionate for people? And if there's something that's happened in your life, you will likely remember a moment where someone's been really compassionate, and you will likely hold that memory with really fondly, because you will be really grateful that that person held compassion for you in whatever moment that was for you. So giving that gift to people is massive, and I totally agree that you have to cultivate a compassion for yourself first. But sometimes it can be easier to see it in other people as well. Sometimes you can recognize when somebody, is going through a bad time. And if you can feel empathy for them, you can be compassionate and hold space for them. And, really, really be there for them. That compassion, that love, care for them as they need to be cared for in that moment. And it's something that we touched upon, we've spoken about, is that, with every event, there is a reaction and then there's an outcome. So you have the ability to input on what that reaction is, and how you want to kind of give yourself that situation. And it will affect the outcome, So you can affect the outcome as well of how other people feel by leading with compassion and being empathic and holding space for them in situations. Really, really powerful. Yeah, holding compassion then for other people. I think a lot of that is to do with patience and, not reacting with our own emotions.
I struggle with that.
Yeah. Do you know what?
Patience.
But isn't it? But human, human as well. Things just come out, emotions surface and you respond, don't you? It's kind of what we're conditioned to do. And I remember I've reading in a book a while ago, I think it was the Success Principles, which was for every event, we give our reaction, which equals the outcome. So for every outcome of a situation, we get to massively influence that outcome by the reaction we give. And I do think that over the years, I've learned that, your reactions a lot of the time can be led straight from a place of emotion and straight from a place of, internally, that instant reaction. And a lot of the time, maybe that's not what we actually want to give in that situation. We want to just have some time to think about what's going on and not react with emotion, but to process, to have empathy and compassion for everybody else in the situation or the event, and then respond in a way that's more aligned with who we are and our soul, rather than emotions that, are created in our body. So having a little bit of patience to digest things and react to people and situations with that thought, with that longer thought process of, how do I want to respond to this situation? And yeah, it can massively influence the outcome.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I can agree with that, because how you respond is kind of like responsibility. I just made a YouTube video about it just before we started chatting about responsibility, the ability to respond, right? Because it's your responsibility how you're going to receive whatever happens in your life. So absolutely, compassion is like one part of it, but responsibility and patience, as you say, it's all interconnected. It's all together with acceptance as well. It's all like a package of emotions that you need to have if you want to have a peaceful life, right? But sometimes it's so hard for us to have a compassion towards ourselves, and it's way easier for us to have compassion towards someone else. But if we can see ourselves as this little children that we still are, these parts of us that are still within us, I feel like it's so much easier for us to take ourselves compassionately, because then we can understand that, okay, this child in us is not dead yet, it's still alive in us. So if we can see ourselves as just, maybe it's I don't know, it sounds like a bad perspective, but sometimes as traumatized children who are just going through some emotions, right? Some negativity, some patterns, some programs, behaviors, then we can really have compassion. I think for me, one of the biggest things that one of the things that has influenced me. Oh my God, I can't even talk. On my journey is doing inner child work for myself and for other people. And this method that I'm using, completion process, where you're focusing on an emotion now, and it brings you back to the very first time that you have experienced this emotion, right? The trauma work. So it has given me so much compassion, because I can see through right now. I don't see everyone as adults, being pissed off or being upset or crying. I see this inner child inside through this layer of an adult, right? Because it's an inner child that is experiencing these feelings. So if you can really have this layer of understanding that all these negativity, all these emotions, all these things that we don't like about ourselves or another person is just an inner child crying for help, really, and crying for understanding, for validation, for love. And if we can see it that way, it's way easier for us to take it as it is and be compassionate and be patient. Because I feel like, if you really filter it like this and you have this understanding together with what's happening, it just makes life so much easier and so much in flow, I guess, because you're really understanding rather than judging straight away. And you're also not judging yourself, because you know that any emotion that is coming up for you, it's like you can imagine that it's you as a baby or as a child, right? That is experiencing this emotion, and then it's way easier to connect to yourself. Although I feel like for some people it's not even easy to connect to themselves like this either. But then what I do in the process of, if someone, for example, struggles with compassion, if I say, okay, now you're an adult, you see your baby self in front of you, do you love it? Can you hug it? And if someone says no, I'm like, okay, then imagine that your dog's soul is in this baby, and then they're like, oh yeah, now I have compassion to this to this being, so there are different ways to trick our conscious and subconscious mind, really, to feel a certain way, to feel compassion towards ourselves. Of course, it's better if we don't have to use these kind of tricks, but there are some tricks that you can really do that. So that's what I wanted to add about compassion from my side, to really just see everyone as inner innocent children that we all are. So that's just what I wanted to add, because it really works miracles for me, in a relationship, in family. Like if I look, I think that the hardest thing is with your parents, but sometimes I also look like, oh, they're just so cute, just little children, I feel like sometimes I'm the adult in the relationship.
But you know what, how powerful is it? And it's something that I use with my clients as well when trying to cultivate that self-love and, like you say, compassion, because guided meditations are a big part of what I do as well, to allow people to, kind of get into the subconscious mind. And I feel that whenever you take a client back in time to a younger version of themselves, or even further forward into a future version of themselves, they find it easier to allow that person self-love and compassion, because it almost takes you a little bit out of yourself until you remind them that that is them and they are allowed to feel that way about who they are right now as well. And I totally agree. Yeah, it almost allows you to find that compassion, especially when it's a younger child you go into, because, you know, children, you know, they've got no fear, they're young, they're vulnerable, they need looking after, they need caring for. And it's like you said with the dog as well, somebody's dog, you know, animals, they need caring for, they're vulnerable. And maybe it's that, you know, we tap into that humanness of kind of feeling like we then have to care for that person or animal. And yeah, it definitely is a brilliant way to cultivate compassion.
That's what I at least found that it works for me very well, because I was a person, you know, let's say 7 years ago, that couldn't love myself. I couldn't have compassion for myself at all, or love for myself at all. So I have gone through the journey, right, of discovering this self-love and self-compassion. And it doesn't even, you know, doesn't come that often right now that I don't have compassion, but there are situations that, of course, I feel bad about myself. And I think that's normal. And it's a never ending journey to be compassionate towards yourself and to be loving towards yourself. And I believe that everyone sometimes struggles with it, but it's how you, again, respond. What's the responsibility you take, right? How you respond to these moments when you lack compassion, when you lack understanding. And it's pretty interesting about the kids and the animals, because I feel like maybe it's because we see them as innocent, and we see them as they need to be cared for by us. That's why we have so much compassion, but we need to be taken care of by us as well, because we are the only people that we're going to spend our whole life with. So we need to be the ones to love ourselves. We need to be in love with ourselves. I feel like sometimes I say, you know, and I said it before, maybe on the podcast, I'm not sure, certainly on my social media, that I'm taking myself out for a date when I'm single. You know, I'm going to take myself for a nice dinner or to the cinema or for a walk or whatever. I'm going to light up some candles and do it all for myself that I would do for another person, because I'm worthy of that as well. I deserve to treat myself as a person that I love, that I'm in love even with, as well, and have a honeymoon with myself.
I love that. Definitely.
I think it's important.
For yourself.
You know?
It's so important.
So I'm really curious, do you have any specific type of meditation or any specific type of practice that would bring you back to this compassionate and loving presence for yourself?
I think it's taking time for yourself, and I do quite a lot of meditations, but I try to do quite intuitive ones. So depending on the time and the day and the situation, I'll kind of change what that meditation practice is. But for me, one thing that I find a really mindful kind of meditative practice is taking myself for a walk down to the beach, because I know that that's a place that I feel true tranquility and freedom and connection to the universe and to Mother Earth. So that's something that I do for myself, because I know that's something that resonates with me. And then actual, you know, meditation where you sat and taking some time for yourself, I tend to have a nice Reiki infused music on in the background, and I like to use Ujjayi breath, which it can also be called ocean breath, because you actually create the sound of the ocean through the breath, through the nose and the mouth. And it's a really nice meditative thing for me to focus on. So I suppose it depends for other people what that is for them. It might be a mudra that you hold with your hands. It might be a visualization, or it might be a sound that you connect to, but something that you know that resonates with you to allow you to come back to yourself. And then after that, I tend to bring myself back to me in any situations that I'm struggling with. I then journal after that a lot. I find journaling quite insightful. And sometimes I don't even mean nice journaling, like writing how you feel. I mean, like grabbing a notepad. And if you're having an experience where, there's anger or there's feelings coming up and there's frustration, scribbling all over the notepad in not even a neat way, but getting that emotion out, and then closing the notepad and knowing that that's okay to express myself. It's like you said before, things will come up in life, and it's an ongoing journey to commit and dedicate to self-love, compassion, and, you know, really loving yourself. And it means holding yourself through them scenarios as well, where they're not so pretty, or, you know, there's something that you're moving through. So likewise, the journal doesn't have to look pretty in them situations either. It's scribble it all out, get it all out, however you do. And yeah, just allow yourself time to move through that, rather than trying to push it back down into your body somewhere or suppress it, because, you know, it then becomes an energy blockage in your body, which is what we're trying to avoid if possible.
I guess, yes, that's what we were trying to avoid. I mean, this is what we are doing with all this work, trauma work, or even Reiki healing, to just get all these blockages out of our body. So everything that is suppressed, we're trying to get out. So absolutely. And so many people on the podcast talk about journaling as like a magical power to just express yourself and to let it out. And I don't personally use it that often, because I like expressing myself out with the emotions, with the screaming, crying, you know, punching pillows or whatever like that. That's my preferred way of doing this, because I'm really intense, and I feel like pen and paper is great, but I feel like I need this kind of almost even a body or somatic sensation to release emotions. But yeah, it's so important on the journey of self-compassion to also be compassionate towards all the emotions, because I feel like sometimes the emotions, like for example, anger, are really hard to hold compassion towards, right? But if you understand anger and understand where it comes from, it actually makes so much sense to feel angry as a child. And even now, like if someone crosses your boundary, then it's completely normal that you get angry. So there is nothing wrong about, you know, feeling this. So even compassion towards anger should be something that we practice. I think that's just my opinion, but I just really believe that every emotion holds a beautiful lesson and holds a beautiful insight for us to improve our life and to live even better lives. So I just encourage everyone who listens to see even anger like this, see it with compassion, see it with understanding, and then your life would flow with even more ease and grace.
And you know what? There's a duality to everything, isn't there? So we feel anger, and we've almost, you know, given that a bad label or a negative label, that anger and certain emotions we give negative labels to. But, you know, there's anger, and then there's, you know, there's dualities to everything. So we have to move through all these different emotions to appreciate when we're on the other side as well. And they should all be welcomed, and we should be able to process and release and express them however we see. You know, you like to scream, and some people like to dance, some people like to journal, but it should, I agree, you know, it should be really encouraged that we allow these emotions to flow and we don't suppress them. And we, you know, we try to meet them all with compassion, no matter what kind of label they have on them, whether they're good or bad emotions.
Absolutely. And also when we work on ourselves, we influence the relationships we have with other people. So how did your self-compassion and self-love influence your relationship? Did you see any improvement in your relationships after you've been practicing it for yourself?
Absolutely. And I'd say in most of my relationships as well, whether it be at work as a manager, or whether it be with clients, or whether it be with my partner or friends or family, it allows you to see that person not just with what you're being faced with, but to understand maybe why. So why? I'm one of them. I was always like this as a child, and I still am now, but like why? And I will always ask the questions why. And I think that if somebody, you know, you're being faced with somebody who is maybe acting in a way that is out of character, or is an unhappy, you know, or how do I say this, you know, like expressing something or being upset or frustrated, I can kind of now, the way that I approach it now is to try and understand why and how are they feeling like that, and has something contributed to that, and what is the best thing for me to do right now. And I think I've learned along the way as well that sometimes advice isn't the best thing to give. You know, just holding space is what that person needs, or just allowing them to speak is what they need, or, you know, giving advice if it's asked for, you know, but meeting that person with the best version of yourself that you can give that day, to really hold space for them and appreciate their journey and what may have manifested, and, you know, how they're meeting you today.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I loved what you shared, because compassion can have very different faces depending on what the person needs in the moment. So absolutely. And that just reminds me of something that I've already shared on the podcast, but I'm going to quickly repeat it again for anyone who maybe haven't heard it. I've done this exercise where you needed to release anger and resentment towards a person. And at first you needed to express and journal how you felt about the situation and how you felt about the person. And then you needed to embody this other person and actually see the situation from their perspective and really feel how they felt. Like, oh, maybe, my situation was about the guy who wanted to rent out a place for us, but then there was mold. He said that he's going to get rid of the mold, but then he didn't. And then we lost money because of him, and we didn't have a place to stay. So I was just working through this situation. And when I put myself in his shoes, it was like, oh, I need to provide for my family. I really need this money. I didn't get to erase this mold, but my kid needs to have food on their plate or whatever. And I'm like, wow, actually, if I see all these different perspectives of what could potentially be in his mind, I'm way more compassionate and way more forgiving towards him, because it's like, oh, I didn't know that there might be so many reasons, and also so many reasons that I wouldn't even come up with right now, right? That this person acted like that. So I feel like this is also a very good method and great exercise for anyone who struggles with compassion, to really try to embody and put yourself in their shoes and then see what this perspective is, because it could be that you come up with so many reasons and you're like, oh my God. And now you can actually release resistance to this person because you can understand them more, right? That's what you were saying. How and why? Why do you feel like this? Why did they do this? How did they feel when they did it, right?
Yeah. Such a good way to visualize it as well, definitely, because you're just wanting to put yourself really in their shoes to feel that empathy, to feel the empathy, to kind of understand. Yes, it's really good to visualize it, definitely. Yeah.
Yes, for me it was very, very helpful. Like, my resistance to this person dropped straight away because I could really be empathetic, just simply, and I feel like when we talk to someone in reality, we can also be very attuned to someone, like literally be open to feel how they are feeling, and then compassion just arises naturally, because if you can feel their heart, can feel what they are going through, and really feel it in your body, to be open to feeling, even if they feel negative things, to be open to feeling it with them. I think that's another way to open yourself up to compassion. Just be attuned to the other person, not be scared of feeling how this other person feels, because then, as you said before, you can provide the best service. You can help this person the most, because you might feel that this person needs to talk, or you might feel that this person just needs to express themselves, or needs advice, or needs just space, right? So I think this is a very good way to just stay attuned and be open to feeling whatever it takes to be compassionate. So I'm really loving this topic of compassion. I feel like it's so important to talk about it.
It is. Definitely.
It's really one of the most crucial things we can do. And, no wonder why Buddhists practice compassion all the time and they talk so much about it, because it's a way to serve the world, and it's a way to really help yourself and others. So it's very, very, very beautiful. So I'm super grateful that you brought it up as a theme for our conversation today. And I would love to ask you one last little question. If a person that listens to us today really resonates with you and would like to work with you, what's the best way to find you and see your content and contact you?
Yeah, so I am on Instagram as Zen by Hannah Catherine. And on there you will find links to my website as well, which is www.zenbyhannahcatherine.com. There's various things on there, my distance Reiki healing that I do online. And there's blog posts, there's loads of content on my Instagram, and coaching sessions that are available with me as well online. So there's loads of ways to reach out to me over there and have a little look at content, and feel free to get in touch if anything resonates.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Hannah. It's been really wonderful to talk to you. And it's amazing everything you shared. So I'm super, super grateful that you jumped on our podcast and that you shared your beautiful energy with all of us. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.